it must be really hard to have someone on your team be in college and play in an ACL. If only literally 3 of the 10 teams, at least, and half of the players or so weren't also in college.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Salt Mine. This is Season 4, Episode 22. So we are most of the way through the open qualifiers bracket. We got 2 teams already qualified, and we got a whole panel on the day because a lot of shit has gone down over the course of the last couple of minutes. I'm Gordo. I'm joined by the entire Salt Mine cast and also not quite honorary cast member yet, but multi-time guest, Supernova coach Collamer slash.
I gotta fix the narrative, man. It's important to me.
Sorry, Ole Miss and Supernova coach. Do you take both of those titles together, or how are you structuring your resume
I guess
these days?
technically both now, right? Well, technically we're not announced yet, so
I think you've been announced since you scrimmed the Double If team under the Supernova banner,
and we are on Friday as well. So.
Yeah.
The double announcement.
Have you not think of a joint name, like something that it's easier to recognize than just Supernova Ole Miss?
Well, it's just gonna be Supernova for NACL.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, if we have any troll drafts, you can just call them Super Miss.
Yeah, I think that's the best name.
No, you guys are too new. The old site used to be Super Noobs. That's what everyone always called Supernova back in the day.
We can't get Shark Nova in there somewhere?
That's actually kind of banger. I don't think anyone suggested that.
All right, if you put my name in little text, you can use that.
Yeah.
By Gordo.
By Gordo cast.
All right.
2.5 font.
Well, oh boy, there's been a lot underway in the last few days. I went out of town for 2 days, and it feels like everything happened in those 2 days, up to and including the qualification of 2 teams. Let's kick things off with that. Let's do some chronological order stuff right here. So, Near Airport have qualified. They were the first team to do so. They did so in 3-0 fashion while the other teams were still playing their series. And that does put these guys in the NACL allegedly. However, there may or may not be some participation there based on what at this point is just a couple offhand quotes from Double Lift on stream. Last week, saying that he very well may not end up playing, as it's a large commitment. They haven't really come out and had a firm decision since qualifying. His most recent YouTube video does just say that they qualified. Doesn't really make any statements about whether they're going to participate in the NACL or not. Where are we at on this? How much of it? And they are still scrimming. Good call there, Collamer. So. How doomer are we on this? How doomer would it be if they didn't participate? Let's gather some thoughts.
I'm not super doomer on it, to be honest. Like, I'm going to be a little bit more on the optimistic side. I do obviously think that there are some players. He gave reasons, right, that some players might not be able to participate, right? Like, for instance, I think Biofrost has school, right? And obviously being able to scrim, like, I will say he said like 3 or 4 times a week. I feel like you don't need to scrim 3 or 4 times a week, but obviously school is important. School is a commitment. So like maybe Biofrost doesn't play. The other player I could see maybe dropping off is like Pobelter, right? But other than that, like, and maybe Double Lift himself, but like other than that, I don't really see a world where Blade is gonna say that he no longer wants to, because this has been a lot of good publicity for him. I kind of compared him as like the Velia of the Near Airport team, kind of just the more unknown quantity. And so I do think he'll play. I do think Spica will obviously play. Like Spica, there's no way Spica drops off unless he gets like an offer from an NACL team or an LTA team, which I doubt will happen. So I think those 2 are locked, and then the other 3 positions kind of up for grabs. But I would expect they're probably going to play. I think he scared people a little too much. I think he was maybe being a little overdramatic.
So here's my question. First of all, just found out, been griefing my mic this whole recording so far. Switched it over to the right mic. May have to re-record a little bit of that after the fact. Well, I'll figure that out. That's not your guys' problem. Second thing. Do we know, are the rules regarding promotion rosters and the consistency of them the same as they have been? What was that, Calmer?
They have to play week 1.
They
I'm
have to
pretty
play
sure is
week
the
1,
understanding.
but then is it like
Yeah.
totally unlocked, or is it like still 4 of 7, or what's the deal?
In that regard, I mean, it's Riot. I'm sure that they didn't even think about that potentially being a possibility. My understanding from reading the rules, assuming that Riot doesn't make an exception, which Riot will almost surely make an exception if they have to, is that roster has to play week 1, and then before roster lock for the second week, stuff can change or whatever. I will say, to the point about like the reasons that they wouldn't play, I would like on the record that I think most of those are complete bullshit.
Yes.
I agree to an extent about Biofrost thing. It must be really hard to have someone on your team be in college and play in an ACL. If only literally 3 of the 10 teams at least, and half of the players or so weren't also in college. I think most likely what happened is either they didn't think about what the schedule would be like or anything, which to be fair, the schedule has been super transparent, so I kind of get it. And maybe there was some thought of their like, well, how are we going to approach this? Because I am very sure that one thing that Double Lift and the rest of the team was not expecting is to actually be contested by tier 3 teams a little bit, which in this tournament they weren't. They kind of just ran over everyone. But I also assumed that they did not go in. They expected to just run through tier 2, like almost surely, even if they were, most of those guys haven't been playing competitive in a while. I think they'll play. I mean, again, I said it earlier, they're streaming scrims on Friday. They've already qualified. If you realistically knew that you weren't going to play an ACL, you just wouldn't scrim and wouldn't stream it, but they're still doing that. So I think that they'll end up playing, maybe partially because people gave them a lot of backlash. I don't think that they expected a lot of people to be like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys? And I don't think the league, like any of the teams really suffer if they don't play, but Riot, I'm sure, would be so tragically depressed if Double Lift team decides to not play.
Especially
Because
Double Lift himself, right? Like if
Yeah.
they lost Double Lift, like the other players obviously have some like name value, but like Double Lift in particular, like that's
He's the goat.
yeah, right. So if he drops off, then I feel like it's like that one really popular kid starts to do a trend in school and like everyone follows, but the moment he stops doing it, everyone else stops with him. Like I feel like if Double Lift were to go down, maybe some others might follow. So that's why I'm really hoping he in particular stays, because I could totally see his potential departure, like causing a potential domino effect, which would not be good, as you're saying.
I think
Go ahead.
you can go. No, you can go, Mr. Elite.
I mean, I was just gonna. I'm mostly agreeing with Collamer here. Like, I think, like, come on. Like, are we being serious? Like, even if you believed that maybe tier 3 teams put up a bit more opposition, there's no way this team didn't go into that tournament thinking we're gonna get one of the 3 spots. Even if they thought they didn't think they were gonna run over 9-0 or whatever the game score ended up actually being. They had to have gotten into this thinking that they were going to be in the NACL. I mean, so I just think it's very weird to me to back out here. I hope they don't. Like, in my mind, if you play the split and like, stuff comes up and it gets a little hectic, and you have to like start subbing in players, or you drop out after the split, that's fine. But you cannot like build all this hype. This is like the equivalent to me. It's not the direct equivalent, but like in the the backlash I would see here is like if Los Ratones like did all this work to get to the EMEA Masters and then just said they're not going to play it. Like they can't commit to the time. It feels very similar to me. I don't see how you can't draw similar comparisons. And yeah, so it also is just a direct content revenue stream for like Double Lift and some of these other guys. And I think especially like TF Blade, I don't know. I've been super impressed by how, I'm sure we'll get into it more, but like I've been super impressed by how TF Blade's been able to play and like use his strengths in this team. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume like he's like been reinvigorated playing competitive after, getting his best shot at it. Like I'm sure he really wants to play an ACL with this team. So I hope they stick around, but how the year's been with tier 3 and tier 2 right now, it's hard not to be a bit pessimistic.
Yeah, I think in general that makes sense. I'm
I
also
think Riot would be tragic if they didn't play with how much they're. So
Okay.
Riot obviously has pushed for NACL to be its own independent product and not be like how traditional sports leagues treat like minor leagues, where they're like, oh, this is like a loss leader where, yeah, sure, we're not making direct money on it, but it's for like a good reason, and like teams should invest because of that. And that's just never really been the case for NACL. And obviously they've changed the name and, you know, Academy, Proving Grounds, NACL. They've never really found consistent footing to get people interested in this league. And so you finally have like Double If come back and be like, oh, we're gonna be Los Rotondas of NA. And then if they just decide not to do it, if you're Riot, you're like kicking yourself because you just got like the freest like advertising, and like the one thing that like NA fans like love more than anything is people who played the game 10 years ago, and you get to lose that. Like Riot would be so depressed. So and realistically, all the other NACL teams, right? Like it's better for everyone if there's more viewership and you know, potentially get more sponsors and more money into the scene, which is something I'm sure we'll talk about shortly for a different topic. But yeah, Riot is probably like praying that they don't just abandon it.
Yeah.
I also particularly think they probably will, like, not only do I think they will play, but I also, like, I'm pretty sure they can find, like, if one player cannot play, I'm pretty sure they would be willing to find someone else to play in their place. Like, I don't think it's impossible for them, first and foremost. I do think there's obviously
Do they
multiple
have
players who
subs?
can
They
come
have
into that
Jensen,
team.
I guess.
But,
That's
like,
it, right?
yeah, but even like they can just
Yeah.
like combine, like they can do what they can bring whatever other pro player that has previously played with them if they don't want to play with anyone newer, or if they think there's
Belter and
someone newer
Jensen.
that can bring up. Yeah, like I think there's multiple choices for them. So I'm convinced they probably will do it. If not, like my crazy theory is if they don't want to play and nobody wants to play, bring the Polestar roster here, the old one, and that way they can all play under the near airport banner. I would love to see that. Just saying. But I don't think it's gonna happen. But I do think the airport will play like 100%.
I do think that, like, obviously if you're a player that wants to get into tier 2, this is, and there's sub spots open on near airport, you should absolutely go for it, right? Like, not only is this a chance to play in tier 2, this is amazing exposure. Like, near airport is going to be the most viewed team in the NACL by like miles and miles and miles and miles and miles. So getting that exposure, you know, even if the results don't necessarily like speak volumes, like even if you aren't like one of the best teams in the NACL, could be really good in just allowing you to gain some more, I would say, eyes on you. So I do imagine that we will see if there are sub spots open, or if there just are, you know, main spots open, not sub spots, main spots open. Players will kind of flock to it like moths to a flame, if you will.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a great opportunity.
I believe the rule is supposed to be that you're not supposed to add subs, but yeah, who knows what rules get bent.
There's no way Riot doesn't make an exception for this team. Like, I feel like Riot looks at this team like, dude, near airport owns Riot. Like, it is not the other fucking way around. Like, if they are smart, near airport makes Riot
That's
their
an important
bitch
qualifier you just said there.
Yeah, that's just how it works. Like, if you want viewership, you want eyes, there you go.
Yeah.
Give them what they want.
All right. Let's talk about our other promotion team. As Apex Mission Impossible. Congratulations to the crew. For those who don't even know, right? This is Decoy, Low Jazz, Phi Mini, Bazby, and Pocus. I don't even think we fully covered this roster in our preview episode.
Nope.
Maybe we talked about them a little bit. I don't know. I definitely I was hyped on this team when they were one of the first rosters announced. They kind of faded into the background after that. But let's go. Phi Mini, a true ACL to NACL prospect, baby. Let's go. This guy played very briefly on one other OQ team that was unserious, but this is basically his first like real attempt to qualify, and he makes it here with this Apex roster, who have been trying for many splits in a row now and have never really passed that top 8 mark. So huge props to these guys, but already people starting to doomsay about the quality of the league a little bit. Collamer's in that boat, perhaps. I know. Definitely the Supernova camp. I know Supernova Ryan and stuff. We're voicing concerns in that department as well. But let's hear it, Collamer. Let's hear the doom, and we can respond to it as we choose.
So I want to preface this with like I'm really happy for all those guys. Like, again, they're one of the only teams that like consistently does make roster changes outside of like collegiate teams. I'd argue even some collegiate teams make roster changes more than like AMI has. Like, they're pretty consistent. It's been like that same group of guys. Really happy for Pocus, really happy for 5 Mini, and all those guys. And the owners, like, again, like that's one of those things where being in tier 3 and always being like an average to slightly above average team, but like never really like being one of those top teams like for splits on end is probably like really frustrating. So I'm really happy for them. That being said, I do not think that there's going to be a single person that basically regardless of who makes it from lower bracket that doesn't have this team as like going 10th. And I think that they definitely got a favorable bracket. I would argue that like I would be slightly more interested or like have slightly more hope if like Dow fans ended up winning that best of 5 because they were the ones who upset, in my mind, like 2 of like the real contenders for the spot. But obviously that game 5, like that entire series was like super stressful, like super like 50-minute games and stuff like that. So I hope that they prove me wrong against other teams that are not my team. But yeah, I mean, it's just a weird spot. Again, like at the end of the day, right? Like they had a easy bracket, sure, but they won the games, and so lucky for like not even lucky for them. Like they did what they needed to do to earn the spot. But it's definitely going to be like an uphill battle for them. I'm really interested to see what their scrim schedule is going to look like because I would assume just from things that other like again other NACL teams have like their opinions of watching this match of like, oh my god, we got to see who gets 10th in NACL this point. That's crazy. I don't know if they're going to be able to consistently get like NACL level scrims. Like I hope that they do. I'm sure that we'll probably end up scrimming them too, like realistically. But it'll be interesting to see how they do this one because they definitely have their work cut out for them, and I think that they know that. But I'm sure that they're not super upset about necessarily being the underdog, I guess.
I do
Yeah,
want to call out like this may be like a little tier within the NACL forming, right? There's going to be AMI. We still don't know who the third team to qualify through might be, right? We may be making assumptions that it's going to be a Respawn or a Citadel or a Tempest, but it could still be a Dog Fans or something like that. And then Pulse is going to build a roster out of twigs and rocks. So like there may be a whole little scrim circle of teams towards the bottom of the league that can't exactly or maybe aren't exactly the most desirable partners for the rest of the league.
Yeah, usually every team scrims each other a little bit, and then based on how people do in scrims and hierarchies and how the early like part of regular season goes, then you'll have like the upper tier of teams that always scrim each other, maybe scrim LCS teams, and then you'll have like the middle to lower tiers, and then you'll have the super lower tiers where it's like, okay, cool, like I guess we'll scrim the OQ teams that are going to try to take the spot from us in like a month or two, like. So it'll be interesting to see. They're definitely like obviously like they're not the only ones who have to go through that, but it'll be definitely interesting for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely will be interesting. I do think to Ted, Collamer's. I'm piggybacking all of Collamer's points so far, but I think it really is.
You're a smart guy.
I try sometimes. I think it's a really important thing to preach. I think the one tweet I sent out about AMI is that I hope more OQ teams become committed to like developing like a core and then like adding supplementary pieces, right? And you can pull from. I do this all the time. I'm wearing sports paraphernalia on this podcast right now. Like this is what sports teams do. Like this is what like even like at the highest level great sports teams do. You build a core and you build around them. So I hope this inspires more teams. Obviously, this is like rose tinted glasses kind of deal. Like this is the most volatile thing ever, especially right now with what's going on with rosters and stuff. Like it can be so hard to retain these players. It can be so hard for players to find orgs that will retain them. So I really want to make sure we victory lap all of AMI, like the ownership, like Cyanidence, like Leanne, like just keeping these guys together and letting that core like Decoy, Low Jazz, Basby and Pogus have been playing together. I mean, how many OQs have those four done together by this point? Like they've done so many OQs. They did a full ACL split, and then so it's just awesome to see. And I am very happy for them, even through all the like Year of Low Jazz memes they're flying out. And the funny part of the Year of Low Jazz things. Now, all I'm saying, I'm gonna make the throwback here. Gordo knows where I'm going. Samikin Fanboys roster from the Risen Champs League.
Holy shit.
2024 fall?
2023.
Yeah. 2023 fall now has more than one current NACL player. Low Jazz, that was Low Jazz and Samikin's jumping off point. So gotta make that call back.
Turns out being a Samiki fanboy works out pretty good for these players, I guess.
You gotta be
Yeah.
a Samikin fanboy.
Devin's next,
bro.
by the way. Just saying, guys.
Devin's
Look out.
next. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was sad that Devin didn't play in this OQ, but I mean, kind of going off of, I do think that like us, as like people that kind of you know, cast and report on the ACL definitely have more of an appreciation for AMI than like your prototypical average fan, because like Slayer said, like we've got to see these guys through OQs, ACL, like they've been hitting the same wall over and over again, and it finally breaks, which I think is super cool. Like the story of AMI last summer was like, particularly between like the first and second summer open qualifier, was like this team was good, but always struggled to like get out of the first round of bracket, right? Like they could get past like GSL and they would make it really far for a team of players that, you know, weren't necessarily rated super high. But they would always struggle to like get to like semis or top 4, right? They would get top 8, but they would never go above that. So I do think it's really cool to finally see them hit their stride. And honestly, I think doing it with a player like Fimini is super cool, because I will admit, I was kind of a Fimini skeptic, especially toward ACL. Like this guy was very, very new to the competitive scene. He was a very unknown quantity, and he was playing on a team that was really, really good, right? And when that team that was really, really good did well, I was like, okay, maybe he piggybacked a little bit. But this tournament, I think, shut me up, because I think that besides Low Jazz, he was the best player on this team, at least performance-wise, like consistently across the board. When I was watching their games, I was really impressed with how he played.
Well, I think piggybacking from your point quickly though, because I like that reference of saying like, if you try like if you crash your head into a wall, if you crash enough, like you're going to break it.
Finally,
And
yep.
technically you can do that, or you can change your method and climb over the wall or do something else around that wall. But like I feel like AMI did a bit of both, where they kept on trying and they finally broke it, but they also added a newer piece to make it so that they could finally break it as well. And certainly 5-mini being that newer piece to add onto that certainly worked out. I think Fimini, particularly like giving props to ACL as always, as we should always do. I think he grew a lot being on that roster, like you're mentioning, the fact that he had multiple players that were not only like very, very, very good NACL players, helped him get a quicker glance into competitive, but also do it in a way that his development was not going to be like just immediately get thrown into losing consistently, because I feel like that's what happens to a lot of like newer competitive players, right? Like they get into rosters trying to play it out, but like they end up losing really early on, and they lose multiple times because the other rosters are much better, and then like it's a much longer attempt at trying to develop through that. Eventually they accomplish it, but it's very few players that are able to just make the jump immediately, get immediate success, and then follow that success with development. I think the other one I can kind of quickly think about, like just off the top of my head, is Bio, when it happened with Ducky Getters last year in OQs, because he was also really new to the competitive scene, and I think that's what 5-mini ended up doing here. Thinking of their prospect into NACL, I am not I'm not confident at all in them. I think they can try and fight it out and maybe do something crazy in the process, but I feel like for most of them, this has to be a showcase, much more so than them trying to retain the spot. Obviously,
Yeah, I
AMI
agree
wants
with
to retain
that.
the spot, but they have to. The players need to show themselves here. That is what they have to accomplish 100%.
That's definitely what I was thinking as well. Like this is going to be like everyone expects this team to be 10th, right? And I am also in that boat, but like TDS is 100% right with saying that the players in particular need to be like themselves, right? Like they have to have strong individual showings, because the chances that this org stays in the NACL for a super duper long amount of time, they're really low, right? And so if you can make a strong individual showing and potentially get picked up by a team, you know, later down the line, then I think we're talking more realistic for these guys as players.
Hey! We do not know.
Sorry, Gordo.
We do not know what Pulse is going to be able to build,
Okay.
guys. I am not sold on guaranteed 10th when the Pulse's situation is getting worse by the hour.
All right,
guys.
Gordo. So you're saying on record, you think that they're getting 9th or higher?
Maybe. I think.
No,
I'm just saying it's.
I was gonna follow up on
there
that
are
though,
new
because
there
they
are
may
new
not be
dunks
10th.
hitting the Pulse Star hitting the Polestar base in real
Okay.
time here. All right,
But like, they may not be 10th, but they may end up being 9th, and that's still relegation.
Yeah, that's still relegation.
that is still relegation. I can't
And
deny
I'm
that.
going to be honest with you, Gordo. We talked about this before we started recording, but it's pretty obvious, even if you don't talk about it, most of the teams that were supposed to make this promotion slot did not fucking make this promotion slot,
True,
right?
true,
like one of Tempest,
There's at least 2 favorites.
Citadel, Respawn,
Yep.
like all of these guys, they're not making it. So in the case of Polestar, you might have 3-4 teams, if you want to maybe include Galaxy in this as well, that you can choose like
This is
5
fair.
players from. And
But
I guarantee you
you don't necessarily get to choose 5 players.
Okay,
you
you
need
don't get to
5
choose.
players to choose you. And
Yeah, but
That's-
players
players
are more
wanna
than willing.
play, I
Like,
know.
Yeah,
players are
that's
more
the
than
thing.
will. Like
Players
those
wanna
players
play.
would be way more than willing to play for a cheaper stake if they were just able to get into the NACL.
I'm just saying,
they
I
tried
watched-
it.
listen, I
Players
watched-
will pay them to.
I'm
be
just
like,
saying,
"Yo,
listen,
pick me up."
AOE
Yeah.
Esports was actually paying people last year, and I watched what them just cycling through whoever they could get outside of the NACL looked like. All right, so let's just
Like-
that was kind of fun
Like
in
what?
its own
Like,
way.
like,
Okay.
dude, I am fully prepared to like slam my head into a brick wall because Polestar says they got sushi or some shit because Respawn won't make it. Like,
Could happen.
Disclaimer: we do not
happen.
condone.
Yo,
anyone
I wanna
bashing
call
their
out,
heads
by the
as
way,
well,
just
Quax,
'cause-
in case.
be very careful because you might have bad things happen in your future.
you are gonna manifest. You're gonna manifest things. But also, I do
Yeah.
want to call out Slayer
What do you
brought
mean?
up Slayer brought up the Samikin fanboys from Risen Champs 2023. I want to call out. This is Destiny Slayer because I was just taking a look at that old sheet. The team that beat that Samikin fanboys roster was a CCG Futures lineup of Quacker,
Oh.
Kizno, Rallick, Breezy, and who played AD carry for that team? It was Baz B, baby.
That was
It's
I was
Baz
gonna
B.
say.
Damn.
Wow. So what
Destiny.
you're saying is the Loki sleeper NACL pipeline was
the
Risen Champions League fall
in fall
2023.
2023.
oh my god.
That we had to discontinue because we couldn't fill it anymore after that.
Yeah.
I
mean,
will
if we're
just
re-
say
if
ACL was just that good.
If we're really getting nitty gritty, who was on the CCG main team that won? Were they already NACL
It was
bound? I
it
guess?
was Dragoon, Messages, Lunar, and Just, and then I don't know who jungled for them. They had a barcode name at the time. I want to say it was like
Fnatic.
Was it
Fnatic?
Fnatic?
It was Fnatic. Yeah.
Yeah,
Rest in peace.
barcode name was pretty much Fnatic all the time that I watched competitive. So yeah, probably it's Fnatic.
But I think Dragoon and Messages were already NACL. So
it could have been. Of course, Low Jazz was on that Samikin fanboys, but he was going by Hide on Cum at that time. So
Banger name.
One of the many-
I love North American Tier 3. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, man.
Low Jazz. My favorite was when Low Jazz. Oh, who was the AD carry that was on the bench and then he just named him the same name as that AD carry? Oh, what was that guy's name, dude?
I don't remember.
God
man.
damn it. Yeah.
Right,
Was it
right
not
up there
just
with
Baz?
Mr.
It seems like
123
something
is
Baz
goated
could've done.
North American amateur player names.
Oh,
No,
man.
yeah.
And like
dude.
half
There's
of them
some
belong
good
to
ones
Low
that we
Jazz
probably
at one point
cannot
or
say.
another.
Just a lot of
Dude, my favorite one. Hold on, I don't care about this tangent. We're doing this. My favorite one, Tier 3 shout out, Speedbag my scrote. We had to call him Speedbag the entire time. And then Potfire accidentally, in the heat of a call, called him my scrote instead of Speedbag. He did the second half of the name by accident. It was the funniest thing ever. I died laughing. Almost as funny as Shibby saying sex 2 times.
Yes,
over.
yes,
Oh,
yes,
that's
yes.
something
Like,
That's actually
Back test
great.
this
Yeah,
weekend.
that's actually great. Yeah.
Oh,
Sex, success. I just like I couldn't.
dude, I love
Maybe it was
like, I
preoccupied.
loved like the mixed reactions to him saying that. Like you smiled a little bit and like let it come through, Slayer. K-Man like completely lost it, and then there was just Alorum stone cold motherfucker just like
he's been through it all.
like did not flinch at that. Like it
I mean,
was
the
just-
things Alorum has heard versus the things me came in.
Hey, he was in a team with Dardock, technically speaking.
Alarm
so,
was on
like-
a team with Dardock and Shogun. That guy's heard some
Yeah,
shit.
true.
that's true.
Was he on a team with? He wasn't on the team when RJS was there too, right? Like no.
No, he
Wait.
was. He was on the
No,
team.
he
with
was,
RJS.
yeah, he
RJS,
was.
yeah.
So RJS, Dardock, and Shoka.
oh god.
Never. I don't think ever all three at the same time.
Dude, dude,
Yeah, I don't remember.
That
I'm
would
just
be
speaking
the
from when Alarm was the
funniest
coach
roster.
of UST.
Well, no,
That was,
RJS was on Mirage with Alorum for a
Mirage,
period of
yeah.
time.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
but
Dardo
he
was
was.
the
They were.
support then, no?
Dardo was a support. Yeah, it was
Yeah,
Dardo,
so he had
RJS,
RJS.
and
He played with both because Dardak ended up role swapping to jungle in that promo
Yeah.
tournament. He played both roles on that team.
that was a good time.
Oh
little
jeez.
tangent.
Oh, all right. Well,
All right,
that's a great
where
walk down
were
memory
we?
lane. As
You
we
said this
wrap
episode
up,
was going to be 60 minutes. You're smoking.
we're in
crack,
about
Gordo.
half an hour, dude. We're doing all right. We're through the 2 teams that qualified. Let's talk a little bit about additional news for format going forward. As this is as good a spot as any to talk about Fearless potentially taking over the rest of the year.
Of course.
This is our most boring topic of the day, so we can.
So I know
We can zip through it.
Collamer hates this shit, so I'm gonna let him have. I think we should let him have the floor first.
So Fearless is one of those things where it's like at the highest level, Fearless like. So my favorite League of Legends has always been at like Best of Fives at Worlds, where you go into the series and like you see these like micro adaptations in between game and game.
Oh yeah, this is my shit.
And so, like to me, and like as a coach, that's always really interesting to me because I'm like, holy fuck, like they have this pocket pick, or like, oh, like they banned this instead, so these this and this and this. 99.5% of people watching don't care about that shit, and they're just like, holy fuck, I only have to see Cassante one time. So is it best for like the best League of Legends? Probably not. Is it best from like a viewership perspective and keeping people interesting and watching it? Absolutely. So sure. Like at the end of the day, like that's what really matters more than anything else right now is just getting people to watch the games. And if not having Cassante in all 5 games of a best of 5 means that people are happy and people want to watch more, like God bless. Like let's just do it.
This is the great compromise, all right? You guys can have your Fearless every single game.
You can have your Fearless, just make sure I still get a paycheck.
Well,
and watch the games.
That's Collamer's compromise. My compromise, because my compromise is you can have your Fearless every game, but we need to all agree that this is just like dangling something shiny in front of your face because you don't actually like competitive League of Legends enough. So
they're trying to appeal to 16-year-olds now. That
exactly.
Like
as long as we can agree,
ooh, shiny new champion.
Everything is doing that. Yeah,
listen,
sadly, everything is going towards.
Listen, as long as we have an understanding that this is just jingling keys, you can play with them all day long.
Yeah, dude. If this jingle of keys captures Gen Alpha into playing League, like it's worth. I really don't. That's the biggest goal that League needs to go for right now, to be honest.
I will make a pro Fearless argument here. In the coaching scenario, or in the high level scenario, because like I do agree, like there's like the minuscule stuff was certainly enjoyable to watch, and the point that I always see and that I can kind of agree to is people referencing how the Rocks SKT semifinals of 2016 was so great because of those adaptations with the Ashe, the Siren, all that, and the Misfortune, which I agree, like that was great, especially if you love tactical stuff. And as someone that desires to become a coach eventually, not League of Legends, but a coach eventually, I enjoy that tactical stuff as well. But at the same time, I think that that's just part of to everything that happens to a sport. It's much more extreme, I will say, but it's something that happens to every sport at every point, at every time in the life of a sport, that you just have to accept it and get towards the high level that brings you now to. Because like it's going to be the new norm, and you have to adopt to that new norm and find the highest level of that new norm, like it or not. And I think that that's going to happen eventually. And I think there is high level play that you can achieve in Fearless. It's just that obviously it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be less tactical, but it is going to be a much different approach of tactical than it is right now, to put it in quotes.
Yeah, And kind of to make another point going into like pro Fearless, like there's 2 points that I really want to make on my turn here. Which is like, so for starters, like I think, TDS kind of talked about this, alluded to this in a way, which is like I think the West performs better when we're allowed to show unique picks. Right? Like this has been proven, like to me at least, time and time again. Like when we copy what the Koreans are gonna do, we lose, because the Koreans practice it 16 hours a day. They sleep, they wake up, they practice it another 16 hours a day. We will like go wake up at like 10 a.m., get boba, play solo queue, like 5 hours of scrims, go to bed, wake up, play solo queue again. Like we are not as disciplined on the quote unquote meta picks as the East. We're never going to be, right? It's just a cultural thing. And then like, so I think it levels the playing field, at least for the time being, because my second point, teams are gonna get over this, right? Like I would take this, like the ability to have unique champions in every game for like 1 or 2 or potentially even 3 years of like the regions not knowing how to like play these unique picks. But then after that, I could totally see them surmounting that hurdle and being just as effective on a wider range of characters. And to me, the level of play will eventually bounce back to what it is now, despite the pool having to be wider. And I think that would make it way more fun long term, like seeing these picks and seeing these strategies evolve over time and teams get better with them when there is that wider variety.
Well, I always thought speaking of Fearless, but also speaking of another idea, like I remember there was talk from someone, I don't remember who it was, there was an opinion out there that said that instead of just doing Fearless, make it a pool, right? Like you select a pool for champions for a certain amount of time and you play around that. And I think that could have been fun as well. Like I'm not like Fearless is not the only thing that I would be a fan of, because I think that having a pool just for a time being could make it a little bit interesting in the sense that you have to adapt to not only the teams but also maybe have a specific player for this particular pool meta that you would get would be kind of interesting to have as well. But I can also see the difficulties. All in all, I think Fearless just tackles that better in both sense, both the entertaining factor plus the multiple picks factor and the casual fan aspect that now you don't have to see that anymore. But also the other thing I'm thinking about with Fearless now is that is there now going to be a distinction going forward for titles and for trophies? Because like there's going to be pre Fearless era, post Fearless era, and
That's
I'm
fine.
kind of curious if
There's
people are going to
pre-5
make
bans and post-5 bans
difference of that.
now, and it's
Yeah, but I
fine.
think Fearless is a much more impactful thing than just the 5 bans in my eyes, because it does change like a lot of what you're going to be seeing going forward in terms of the BO5s. So I'm kind of curious if that ends up happening. Not sure if it will. I probably don't think so, and I don't think it should ever. But there's people out there that would be willing to, and I'm kind of curious if that ends up happening.
I saw a pretty good take though about a good question. I think that the full Fearless proposes. I know we're kind of segueing talking about highest level, but it's a trickle down thing with the Fearless stuff. I think side selection now. I'm sure. Collamer, I'm curious what you think about it. Like side selection is now like somebody talked about as like almost like kind of like home court advantage in a way if you can get side selection off the rip, right? With how Fearless plays, and I think it's important to bring up and toot the LPL's horn a little bit here. I think now that we have Fearless and side selection matters a bit more to me personally. We should definitely start leaning more into 1v1s, because like what's the loss here to like have a 1v1 prior to a series, right? Like
You don't even need
no,
to
I
shit.
agree. That's
we
a
get to do
sick
extra-
idea that more
we get to do extra content. Oh no, like people will watch like more of the broadcast before the game actually starts. No way. So they've been
Like
really
there was
fun with the
already
LPL.
I remember there was already like the setup before going into the game. Like you can do it around that time, and you don't need to have the downtime in the process either. So it could be a good thing.
I think the side select is always going to matter whether it's Fearless or not, because again, like for example, in a meta where like the best B1s are like, I don't know, like Jace, Cassante, Aurora, like it was a few patches ago. Like whether it's Fearless or not, blue side is really good if you feel like there's X amount of like really good champions and you want to pick one. In Fearless, it's kind of weird because the longer the series goes, there's arguments for both sides where it's like if you actually have really strong counter picks and you force them to blind more because they're on blue side and they're not getting like super OPs because there are just none left in a series, that's really good. But also if you're blue side, like there is some merit to like some advantages that you can get on blue side as well the longer a series goes. It kind of just depends on your team. I think like the 1v1s are good, but also like there's always been a hypothetical like best side for the not like always, but like for the most part over the past few years, there's generally been an agreed upon like side that you would prefer to have in a series, whether it's Fearless or not. But I like that at least like 1v1s make it interesting. Also
Instead
like
of like
for
a coin toss, right? Like instead of a
yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I
I don't
always
like
prefer like
contests.
double elim like brackets. Like, I think if you come for winners, you should get sides like game one, and I think that's enough of an advantage that you should be very happy with it. I know that used to be a thing where it's like, oh, like it should be you win a game. It's a 7-game series. I think that used to be like a Monty talking point, which like no, you can just have side select for at least 3 games in a series, and that's a pretty sizable advantage in most metas. But I like the 1v1, so I think that should be more of a thing, especially in tournaments where
For sure.
it's like a big product, like especially if it's like a tier 1 league or something like that.
Yeah.
That should be like more consistently a thing instead of coin
The
toss.
other take that I've heard has been like an advocacy to try to bridge the blue side win rate gap, because especially in like LCK, blue side's been winning really, really high percentage of games.
Same with LPL. LPL was discussing the split too.
Yeah.
Which is funny. It started red side. I saw it started red side dominant, and then it turned into blue side dominant. The LPL, like into playoffs, it turned blue side dominant. I remember.
yeah.
I think wave
I've
swaps
heard
have a lot to do with that too.
I've read takes that argue like if coaches and teams need to break out of the mindset of like must bans on red side and stuff like that, try to like use the rules of Fearless in more creative ways to try to create, harder counter focused compositions on red side that are like different than the traditional like approach to red side drafting. I think it'd be. I've said this since like we first started introducing Fearless, right? It's like there's this like high level conceptual idea of like big braining the draft, and like you're in like game 3 and that all of a sudden like all the viable AP top laners are banned now. Like Rumble and Kennen and Aurora, pick your AP top laners, are all Fearless away, and now suddenly like Malphite's S tier. It's like silly shit like that. And it's never, and we were saying even at the time, like it's not going to play out that way. Like people are going to just like go down the priority orders. And as champions are banned, they will go to the next champion in the tier list. But maybe as time goes on, as people grow accustomed to this format as the new normal, if that is what it's going to be, you'll start to see, I think, maybe perhaps some more creative approaches, both on the red side specifically and more in general, that may cause that win rate to shift.
Yeah, I think with lane swaps being gone, R5 for top lane matters a lot more now. So that helps quite a bit, because again, like especially in the Fearless series, if you're able to R5 like a matchup where it's like, I don't know, it's like you're playing a hyper carry top lane and they're stuck at least early in the game, not being able to lane 2v1 into you and just completely shut you out of the game if you pick like a Fiora or something. I think that it should help a bit. It also just depends, because I think the issue with red side a lot in Fearless is that, especially later in games, teams like picking. So I feel like in this is kind of like a global thing, is the more that you go in Fearless, teams don't want to pick stuff that's volatile. They want to pick stuff that they know has like very simple, like very easy to blind, like all the good blinds. Like, bro, I'm picking Wukong Orianna in like game 3 of Fearless. Oh my god, I'm so happy, because again, like no matter what you pick, like my team comp is going to be cohesive and it's going to make sense. Whereas if you're red side in a Fearless series, what you really could do, and kind of like the best way to take advantage of that, is to like pick hard counters and pick like weird matchups or whatever that are going to be hard to punish for the team on blue side. But that's just not really what happens, because usually if you're game 3 in a Fearless series and it's 1-1 and you know that like this is a close series, you're not really like, maybe this is a perfect time to pick out like Vayne top lane into a tank or something like that. So we'll see. I think that the main point to like end it off with, because I think that you can kind of go in circles on this, is there's a lot more that can be done for Fearless. And because it's so new at like a high level, where like really like people who get paid to do this full time for their job are finally like kind of coming around and getting used to it, there is going to be a lot more things that can be done. And people are only going to get better at Fearless and be able to get really unique advantages the more that they have experience being able to do it. So
they should learn from tier 2 and 8. We've been doing it for a while. We know about a couple of things here.
I'm doing this shit for years, buddy.
We innovated Garen first. Now we
That's Fearless meta.
Yeah,
sure,
now we bring in Fearless meta. All right. Good chat there. Let's get into. Oh boy, do we want to open up the Pulse Pandora's box?
We already mentioned it.
Do we want to talk about the? We didn't talk about. Well, I guess we could do. No, we could do that last. Because lower bracket is the future.
Yeah, it's lower bracket and Pulse are the last 2 items on the list.
So we'll do Pulse first, because lower bracket is.
All right, let's do Pulse.
We're already in the shit with this. So.
We are.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
right. All right. Let's. All right. Let's go for the recap angle. So Pulse.
Yeah. Gordo, go through it
Polestar.
all first. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh boy. How do
And
I
this all
want?
happened today, mind you.
A lot
Like,
happened
it-
today.
Dropped 5
Yeah.
hours.
So we're
before
recording this
6
on
hours.
Tuesday the 11th right now.
Mobility
Current
dropped
plan.
5 minutes before recording.
I'm gonna drop this episode
Yeah,
probably
just in
still
case
on.
there's more news tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Like this is on Tuesday. There might be even spicier stuff tomorrow and the day after.
Surely,
Well,
surely there's a twit longer in the next 12 hours.
Yeah,
right?
well then
Like,
that's too bad. That's too bad because this episode's gonna drop on Friday the 14th, and we're recording it on Tuesday the 11th.
Yep.
And a lot of news dropped today, and maybe there will be more news tomorrow. Like I said earlier, like Pulse's reputation is worsening by the hour, so who knows where we'll be by the time this drops? Maybe we'll even like have some. Maybe even the spot belongs to somebody else by Friday, right? Who's
We might
to
have
say?
closure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this might even be done with, but I don't care. I'm not turning around the editing for this episode in less than 12 hours. I have a job. So, the news is Polestar has no money. That announcement came a few weeks ago. We talked about that. And I've now lost their entire roster. There was a time period where
Tenacity, Cryra, Toasty, Spawn, Cryogen with Edo coaching and Zav
Edo
managing.
coach.
correct. Yes.
And
there was
don't
a-
forget Zav and Maddie on the
Yeah,
socials.
can't
Can't
forget
forget
them.
Zav and Maddie on the socials. So yeah, they
Mhm.
called out. There was a time where they may have been still playing, even though they weren't getting their original deals. That time is now past us. And
Yeah,
is-
they were willing to play if it meant that they managed themselves and that Pulse upper management would not be a thing. According to I forget who did. I think according to Toasty, that was the agreement, and that apparently did not end up happening. So now
That is
they
correct.
are not
That is in the
playing
EV
for
League.
Pulse anymore.
They have lost their FlyQuest partnership. That much is also in the EV League. Yeah, so they're going to be building a new team with a box of scraps, and it appears that the Pulse boys are all free agents, and none of these, probably the 3 best players under 20 in the region will all not be playing in NACL in spring unless something changes. So that is a big shame. Yeah, let's start off with it is a big shame, and let's go with takes from there. There's a lot of different directions, a lot of different discussion points to be had here. Anybody who wants to speak up with a take, go ahead in there, and we'll chat about it. I know different people have different amounts that they'll feel comfortable saying on this forum.
Yeah. This when this team wraps back to OQs, I can't wait to see what the roster name is. That's all I've got to say. I wonder what creativity they're
Goonstar!
gonna do on that front.
It's just going to be hashtag Pulse lose. Like,
Wait,
Yeah, it's
actually,
probably
yeah,
just gonna be
Goonstar.
It should be Goonstar, but you're right. It
Goonstar
will
would
be
that
hashtag
would
Pulse
be-
lose.
Yeah, it'll be Pulse lose. No, I mean, I think I have a simple take. I'll just throw it out there to get out of the way. This is kind of a travesty. This is a region that we've preached is starved, is difficult to develop in, is starved of next upcoming talent for tier 1 futures and tier 2 futures, and you're gonna hear from everybody here on this desk, on Twitter, wherever that Cryra, Toasty, and Cryogen are some of the 3 greatest that are currently floating around in the developmental ecosystem. So, and in an environment where there's such quick turnarounds, everyone makes the meme jokes that once you turn 21, you're like an old head for developing in NA. Like valuable months, valuable block, like getting these games in and putting yourself on that platform. It really sucks because. Yeah, everybody has been preaching at different points during the last year or so that Cryra might be the next up jungler. Toasty, Alex, Gordo's been capping for this guy for a year now on the salt mine. I've been hearing he's convinced all of us in that time. And then Cryogen, it was so sought after that FlyQuest literally stored him for the NACL, heading up to this debut that he's now stolen away from. So. It stinks. My thoughts are with the players. I'm praying that somewhere down the line there is an org that can pay them what they deserve for the OQ run that they'll probably have to go on. It just sucks. These guys were on a trajectory that few players have been on in this ecosystem, and hopefully these couple of months off doesn't impact it too heavily.
I don't think it will. I think that, you know,
I don't think it will. Yeah, that's true. I agree with you.
we were talking a lot about like exceptions with the double lift team, and I do think that these players are definitely going to face those later down the line, simply because of how shitty the situation is. And I think a lot of people like already, you know, on 3-11, like Gordo said when we're recording this, there's already been so much shit that's gone out. Like between us recording this, like starting the recording, and where we are now, Mobility came out with a tweet.
Yeah.
Detailing his, like I have it on my other monitor right here.
Yep.
So we've got shit from Toasty, we've got shit from Kryra, we've got shit from Mobility. Like there's I'm pretty sure there's a couple of others. Like the amount of publicity that this whole situation has gotten in less than 24 hours of the entire team just departing from Pulse is insane. So I do think a lot of people being made aware of this will mean that the player's career, their careers won't be impacted by it too much. At least they shouldn't be impacted by it too much. But man, I usually am one of the more tame people on this show, but I just have to say it, like Pulse was really, really stupid with this situation. Like I have like some respect for some of the people on that organization, but I will say the people whose voices were predominant in the decision making of this whole situation, it was all stupid as shit. Like the rumor floating around was that these guys, or not even rumor, I mean we've literally got the receipts, is that like these guys were saying, okay, we'll play for free under the Pulse banner as long as you don't fuck with us or mess with us, like doing our business in the NACL, like playing, like let us do our own thing.
Unacceptable.
And Pulse said no, which is just the most insane thing. I've been trying to think of a reason, like why would you say no? Like, is there a valid reason to say no? And the conclusion I've come to is there's not. That was a stupid decision. There's no reason to not just let them play. Like, dude, having 5 players and coaches that agree to like play for you for free is like rare as shit. Like, I never thought, like, I was honestly preparing for this team to like let some of the players go and potentially keep others. But the fact that all 5 of them and the staff said, yeah, sure, we'll stay on and play for, you know, less money and / or completely free of charge is crazy to me and gains a lot of respect for me that these guys care about the competition more so than the pay. So that automatically, like, respect came up a lot for these guys. Respect went really down, though, for the people that said no in the Polestar organizations, because this was like a golden opportunity for you. And then, as if it wasn't shitty enough, like, there are rumors that there was like a buyout potentially, and that didn't go through. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. I'm not a marketing major, and I don't know anything about business, but I know things about logic, and I feel like logic overrides everything in this whole scenario. Am I wrong?
No.
So tell me I'm wrong.
You're not wrong. And
Yeah,
to give
people in
some more
amateur League of
color.
Legends to think, and yeah, that's very unlikely.
Unless you have a big ego, yeah.
Yeah, I think that so to give some context on the buyout point, there's some pretty compelling sources out there that there was an offer given a couple days ago, or at least an idea brought up by another organization to acquire Pulse's spot. Technically, this is against the rules, but I think they were gambling for a exception if this offer had been accepted. But they were intending to both buy out Pulse's spot for more money than they bought in for, and recruit the same roster and staff, and that offer was also declined. That much seems to be pretty undeniably true based on some of the information that is out there. So, yeah, I mean, you can't say they don't want to be in. You can't.
Yeah, the only thing, like, so there's a couple points I want to kind of want to make. The first thing first being that, like, for all the players and the coach and the staff and everyone, like, it's such a shitty situation. I don't think I've ever seen like a tier 2 roster, at least like recently, get like as much love, especially from people at tier 1 levels, where they were
Wanted
like,
them so bad.
they're like, bro, I'm so excited to see Toasty. I'm so excited to see Kryra. I'm so excited to see this team. Like, you had like GMs of tier 1 orgs, you had coaches, you had all these people that are really excited to see this roster. And I think that a lot of that like is why, you know, I'll say like the 5 players and the coach, and I know that there's other people involved, but like the main core of people wanted to stick together is because like, yeah, like this is a hype roster. I think that if you were thinking about like if you had to name 3 teams that would be contenders for first in NACL, like this team would probably be one of them to a lot of people. So it's pretty unfortunate if they're not gonna have the opportunity to play in NACL this play, which it sounds like they're not. Which again, like I've been on like again, like I was the GM for like for a tier 3 org when native, like when the first split of NACL was the thing, and I can acknowledge that it can be stressful and it can be really hard, and sometimes like, you know, there's a lot of pressure to get like stuff signed, and you want to make sure that you like secure players so that way they don't go to someone else and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, like at the end of the, I don't know, you just kind of have to put players first, and it just, from everything that kind of has come out in screenshots and stuff like that, like players first was like 100% like not what was really happening here. And regardless of situation, regardless of having an NACL slot and wanting to, you know, put together the best roster and show out and stuff like that, like at the end of the day, like it's tier 3, tier 2 League of Legends for you know, a region that is slowly not gonna like it's not that serious. Like, be nice to the players, take care of them, make sure that like they're prioritized more than anything, because they're the entire reason that any of this even gets to happen. So yeah, I don't know. It's really unfortunate if these guys do end up playing OQs or something like that. They're by far, I don't even think that favorites is a thing. Like, they're just gonna win OQs. Like, and they're going to win OQs, and then probably whoever ends up being in one of those bottom 2 slots that have to pay them, they're just going to run over them. So it sucks that they would potentially have to spend a couple months in OQs and they wouldn't get to play in the NACL for the next like 7 to 8 weeks and plus playoffs or whatever. But yeah, I mean, all these guys are really good. Quite a few of these players I think have LCS level talent. And some of them are hyped up to like an extreme amount. Toasty is one of the 2 mid laners that can potentially replace JGP, according to Resvin, the old EG coach. I don't know how much of a meme that's going to end up being, but like all these players are great. I think Ito's a great coach. Like overall, it's just really tragic, and I hope that they bounce back. I hope that they find an organization that can compensate them. I think it's very admirable that they were so willing to just show out and show people that they wanted to compete and win any NACL, that they were willing to do it for free. And it's gonna suck that they're probably not going to get that opportunity.
Yeah.
I would add in one more thing here, just that. So I don't want to leak anything specific, but let's just say, like, based on what I'm hearing about the dollar amounts for these buy-ins, if like Luminosity had this happen, if Luminosity came out and said like, hey, all our sponsors pulled out, we don't have any money, we're gonna have to like void all our current contracts and figure out a new roster or whatever, that would obviously be like bad, and it'd be scummy, and it would be a whole big issue. But they would at the very least be able to like point to their investment in the spot as like some justification for being there. Based on what I've told Pulse paid out of the Cincinnati Fear fire sale, they do not even have that. Like their actual like degree of investment in actually getting the spot is so freaking low that like the fact that they're hanging on to it here instead of just like trying to take an offer to get out at profit is just bonkers to me. I mean, it's just crazy.
I will say that the only reason in my mind that, so according to the EV article, in terms of kind of your point, Riots apparently will not find wrongdoing as long as they pay the players some amount of like what they're owed hypothetically by, I think it's a week from now, like the 19th or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that from Pulse's perspective, they're very lucky that Riot already had to announce Cincinnati Fear and then renege on that and then announce Pulse, because I think that one of the only reasons that Riot would not just tell them like, hey, like you screwed over the players, like they're gonna keep the spot, and kind of to your point, like you guys don't have the investment. You just bought. You've had the spot for 6 weeks. Like, it's not that deep. Is because it would require Riot to once again for the second time in 2 months be like, oh, the spot changed. Oh, the spot changed, and Riot is not really in the business of doing things that optically make their product or make their brand look bad. And I think that is pulls the organization's saving grace, and for the players and the team, like the actual like people that would have been playing in the spot is really unfortunate, because I think if Riot didn't feel that way, they would probably just be playing Orgless or whatever. Actually, I don't even know, because Riot won't let people do Orgless because you have to have an LLC, so that way if you promote it to LCS.
That's
but
the funny
whatever.
thing, right? Like, Riot won't let you do Orgless. Like, this is like letter of the rule versus spirit of the rule kind of thing, right? Because Riot won't let you do Orgless and wants you to have an LLC because they want orgs that are like solvent enough to promote to the LTA and be like viable, like LTA
Partners.
viable inheritors
half
to
the
an
league isn't
LTA
getting
spot.
paid, so.
And Pulse already is definitely not that, right? See, like that ship's already sailed for Pulse, right? Pulse is not.
Yeah.
Pulse could not be in the LTA.
There was a better chance with the team that was quote unquote buying the spot that win polls now. So like,
yeah, so
probably
it's
not
it's
going
that,
to be.
that. I understand Riot will probably follow the letter of the rule, but the spirit of the rule is already long gone for this Pulse roster. Like, this team cannot. If their random team that they build from the leftovers qualifies
They probably
for
will
LTA,
still get a good team if any of the players, like again the Respawn roster, the Tempest roster, if they can somehow convince one of those,
Yeah,
those
like
groups
that.
of fives. Like there's a very real world where this ends, where Pulse gets a team that maybe we all thought was going to win qualifiers anyway, and they play for Pulse and they play for free.
That you know what would be fucking hilarious? That is literally the take that I had. There was a Salt Mine episode, or not Salt Mine, Salty Rumbeck episode recently where Grapes and Hawk talked about, like, they were like, give us your takes. And I sent in a take where basically, like, the short version of it was like buying and like acquiring rosters and like buying into the NACL is going to be just as frequent as like promoting, with how unsustainable the landscape is. If that happens, what Collamer said, I'm just saying, if you want me to tell you your future, I only charge $9.99 because I am a prophet, and you should all listen to me because I was right from the beginning. I think that's a very real thing that could happen, though. Like, I don't necessarily know if like all of them from like Tempest or Citadel or Respawn or whatever would be willing to like play, but like I could totally see like an AD carry from one team and like a top laner from another and like a mid laner from another, like basically combining those three
grabbing
teams
all the
and like,
scabs.
yeah, kinda, and just throwing it together at the end. And honestly, if that were to happen, the team could be pretty good. Like I could totally see a world where like players from Citadel, Tempest, Respawn are all really good. So just kind of putting Pulse as like an amalgamation of those three guys could certainly avoid relegation. But the big loss here for Pulse is just like the whole like reputation, right? Like everyone was on their side, and now it feels like everyone has their pitchforks, their knives, their like muskets, whatever you want to say, out. Flamethrowers, bazookas, cannons, gravity orbital weapons, ready to see this team just absolutely get shit on. Which is a real shame. Like that's the real unfortunate thing is that they really lost like a lot of support from the public eye, I think, going forward. No matter how good they are, even if they fucking win the whole thing, like there's going to be a ton of people who are just like, Pulse is a piece of shit organization. And like that's justified, unfortunately.
Yeah, like it makes me remember actually, just quickly, like like recently someone like digged onto the tweet that pollster did. The reply to my reply to that pollster, like what is it, introduction tweet, like video they did, and it like saying this aged like milk, and it's pretty much true. Like everything about Polestar so far has aged like milk, legitimately. Yeah. It's been going from bad to worse, and it can only get it could only get better here, but I think it's going to get worse with time. Kind of like what happens in esports most of the time. Like a lot of things just age like milk in general in esports. Hopefully we can get over that, but so far it's not looking that great with the Pulsar situation. I think it would be hilarious if Polestar ends up being like if they get scabs, they end up being like 9th place, not 10th but 9th, and then the I'm going to call them Goonstar. I don't care. Like Goonstar comes from OQs, they win against them. They not only beat the scabs, but they also take the spot from Polestar. It would be hilarious to me, and I would love to see that. Or there's also the other potential play here that is maybe just play good enough that K Corp sees you from the LFL and they get you for their team and they would actually pay you because they can actually pay you.
Shout out Yukina.
Yeah.
All right,
Do
Slayer.
we have time for like a mini 5-minute tangent or no?
Yeah,
Or
you want to talk about
what is it?
Yukino?
No. Shout out Yukino, but no.
Okay.
So rewinding everything back, and I'm not gonna say this because trying to remove any blame from Pulse management or anything, because at the end of the day, like this was a pretty egregious fuck up, especially in terms of just like how they communicated with people and prioritizing players versus like, just being good communicators and stuff like that. I think that it is very telling or very worrying, and I know I'm a doomer anyway, so like nothing new here, sorry. That Riot announced that they're going to have promotion relegation, which, if anything, should be the biggest incentive for people to come in and want to care about NACL. Org wise, viewership wise, like this is like the time where people should actually give a shit because, oh, cool, we get to see like the teams that promote up. And since that happened, right, you have Double O's team. So the league is 10 spots, right? So you have Double O's team who
Yeah.
says that they're not even sure if they want to play. You have this whole pull situation. You have like I'm not even going to say the number of teams, but multiple teams that have basically said that like if things do not change drastically in terms of revenue, like they're going to be done. Not even like after next split, but after this split, like they're going to be done with it. And so you have all these teams where basically I would argue like a majority of the league right now just doesn't even want to be in here after Riot made an announcement that's supposed to be like a very positive thing and should make people super excited to want to invest. And again, Pole said that their whole reason for their money issue is that their investors backed out. And so if your investors are backing out based on like the metrics of the league and stuff like that, when you have that opportunity to promote up and whatnot, and I would argue that again, it's not like Pulse is a roster where that's completely unfeasible that they could win NACL and like potentially get that spot in the split. Like if that's the case, that's where we're at right now. Like Riot genuinely needs to fix something, otherwise like NACL is really not going to exist as a product that people are going to care about, even like in a split or two. Because at a certain point, if you can't get 10 people to be like, hey, there's a world where you could be an LCS, like that is a very, very massive glaring flaw that Riot needs to fix for their product if they want people to actually give a shit about North American League. Especially about this idea of like, yeah, we want League of Legends to be around for forever. Well, right now, like you're basically ostracizing all the people that would be your future like all-stars, your future MVPs, whoever is going to be the next like consideration for the GOAT, like whoever would be contending for that with Double Lift and Bjergsen, like you're going to ostracize them from ever like playing and from having people support them, and so you're fucking yourself over. So they need to fix it like ASAP. Otherwise, like you just might not have 10 fucking teams or 10 LLCs that are even going to care enough about NACL to even want to be here. So Riot, fix your shit, please. Please don't find me.
Agree.
Yeah,
You're
I think
muted,
that's a very
Slayer.
valid thing
Yeah.
to say. Yeah, I got XLR diffed right there. At this point, like I'm almost leaning like full anarchist at this level with like trying to get right answer things. Like, you know what? If that's true, Collamer, like, why don't I hope these orgs like band together, man? They all go out at the same time. Let's fucking tweet the same tweet on like 5 different NACL orgs Twitters after the split's over. Be like, deuces.
Yeah.
Like what
Also,
the like? Just Riot's gonna sweat their balls off if like 6 teams just drop out of the fucking.
Well, you
NACL.
know that. Okay, so you know that
unfortunately,
was
there was
the
a certain
thing.
AD carry player the last
Yeah,
time
I
that
was
teams and
about to
players
say,
came together and
Collamer.
completely threw it away.
Yeah, I mean that is a good point, right? But
I will say too, to like my point, I don't even think it's been talked about. NACL cut the prize winning. So my understanding is that there's again no revenue share for the split again, and the pricing for NACL has gone down something around 60 to 70%. So if you're a team where you're making the argument of like, okay, cool, like if we place high enough, we can subsidize this. If you would have got $10,000 for like 3rd place or whatever it was, and now you're getting $3,000 over the course of a full split, like
what the fuck do you do?
like everything is trending in like
Yeah.
a very, very ass direction right now. And the possibility of getting an LTA spot, which I would argue it doesn't even matter for this split, but also even for next split, realistically at any given time, there's only going to be we'll say 3 teams, 2 to 4 teams really ever in a league that are going to contend for a championship in like a 10-team league. Like, what about everyone else that is like sitting here and like also playing the games and stuff like that? Like, are you just going to leave them out to dry and say like, yeah, bleed for it? Or like, is this going to be like a social media thing where it's like, oh, but you're getting exposure? It's like, no, that's not how it works. So
yeah. The last thing I'll say on this, this is like a semi tangent, but I've made this point before, like 4 times across however long I've been a part of the salt mine. Again, I'm gonna pull from another esport. It's not a perfect area, but I still, every time we have to have like format discussions, org discussions, all this stuff around letting people in, not keeping certain things, like creating an ecosystem that could self-thrive. Like, if I had a genie, like I would snap my fingers and make Counter-Strike's esports philosophy, like their approach to tournaments, promoting all that stuff. Well, not that. Okay.
Gambling. No,
well,
I'm
that
serious.
would
I'm serious,
No,
dude. I'll take the
I'm
freaking
serious at
gambling
this point
sponsor.
too.
I'll take that, yeah.
I would take it too. But my point is like, is open circuit, right? Like, Counter-Strike just opens everything up to everybody. Like, there is a world where you can go from playing like the piss poor level of, I don't know if you guys are from like ESCA, I think it's facing now. And if you grind, you keep playing, like you will end up at the highest level of Counter-Strike in your region, which then becomes international. Like, I've seen it happen with like so many players have been playing this game forever. Dude, like, even if League had like half of this like open circuit, I think so many of these problems like could potentially be fixed. I hate that I have to keep. It's all I think about is I look, because I casted there for a while. Maybe I'll fucking end up back over there the way this shit's going. And like,
we have
I'm
to
like,
think about that in the future, maybe.
I mean, I am. I'm not gonna lie here. Like, I've been thinking about that the entirety of 2025. So it just hurts that I see like that area and it's like, oh, that is actually just fully working. And then it's like, I come back here and it's like, oh yeah, there's a chance that like half the teams in NACL just say fuck off after the split. Like, what am I supposed to think?
Yeah,
that's my tangent done.
It would be very nice if, again, the teams in LCS and the LCSPA recognize that things are not getting better and that things are actively getting worse, and that boycott that they did and failed, absolutely fucking failed, got nothing out of it other than a one-time tier 2 tournament. That, does anyone actually think that there's going to be another international tournament this year for tier 2? Absolutely fucking not.
No,
so out of all that, the first and only time we've ever had a serious discussion about like long-term NA success, it went down the fucking shitter and nothing positive happened from it at all. And realistically, now things are getting worse. Again, you have promotion relegation. Awesome. Obviously, it's not making any sort of fucking impact. So yeah, maybe it's time for LCSPA or whoever to understand again, like, you are the people that are going to be playing in LCS. If you want at some point to allow Impact to retire after playing League of Legends for 15 years, like, if you want future NA players to come in, like, shit is dying over here, like, immediately, and it's dying in like the next calendar year, not in like, in 5 years we're going to be fucked. It's like, no, like right now, like, things are very fucked up and need to get fixed ASAP if you want there to be an LCS or an LTA or whatever the fuck you want to call it in 5 years. Like,
Sadly, in 5 years was 5 years ago. This is 5 years now.
Yeah,
that's
in another 5 years, we're really, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like the thing is as well is like, I really think it's concerning the lack of talk tier 1 has had in regards to tier 2 and especially tier 3. Like, dude, Medios was holding had a talk show with some of the C9 players, and they didn't even know what the fuck like OQs were. Like, half of them, like most of the guys that were on that episode were like, what the fuck are OQs? Or like, what the like literally didn't give a shit about it, didn't know about it. And so to me, that just shows like a fundamental disconnect, similar to the player, like the fans of like tier 1 and tier 2 / tier 3. There is a just giant disconnect between those two audiences. And I think, again, it really starts with the players speaking up about the bullshit, right? Like, it's really nice that we get to see Papa Smithy, talking about this stuff. It's really nice that we get to see, David Shynock talking about this stuff. That's not enough, right? When you have got, like like outliers and like GMs and coaches talking about it. That's cool. Everyone needs to be united on this issue. Everyone needs to be talking about this issue, and everyone needs to be singing a solution about this issue, because the lack of just care from tier 1 in particular is astounding to me. Like,
one of
it's
the things
crazy
in pro basketball that I don't know if any of you guys follow pro basketball. One of the things that all the old heads always told to the new players is to leave the game in a better place than you found it. That's something that if you listen to like Michael Jordan, if you listen to Magic Johnson, like all those guys, like that is something that they've always said, and like advice that they got from the guys in the 60s and 70s and all that stuff. Yeah. And that's one of those things where it's like I never really like thought about it or cared about it, because it's like, okay, cool, what the fuck does that even mean? Just like show up and like play the fucking sport. But yeah, it kind of sucks that like there's a whole generation of people that like we all watched and that we all cared about. And again, a lot of this stuff isn't really their fault. Like, as much as like I would like to see like teams be more involved, and like, yeah, you can borrow our analysts and our coaches once a week if you can slap our LCS team name on your NACL team. I wish that they were a bit more involved, but at the end of the day, like, a lot of this comes down from Riot and like mishandling over the course of the years. But either way, it would be really cool to see like players at that level, at very least, not actively harm people's perception in like the NACL and NACLQ by calling all these players shit or reinforcing negative stereotypes, and like actually doing something to promote players and stuff like that, and like say like, oh, I think this guy is really good. So like, for example, like one thing that I will give Double Lift credit for is that like every single time that he is like asked about like, oh, who he thinks are good players, or like who would be like his like dream roster to start an LCS team with and like win an LCS, is like he will always name players, and like, again, bias, but like he always names Shogo every single time that he does that, very consistently. And so that's one of those things where I know that people like have found like his streams and like our team and stuff like that through something that Double Lift has done. And that's like one person making an offhand comment in the middle of like a 9-hour stream. So it's like, imagine if people were like doing more stuff like that and less of like actively sabotaging and just like making fun of like the situation that all the really shit amateur players find themselves in right now. So
yeah, it actually makes me like, I remember talking about this when I was, or not this particular topic, but something similar when I was on the on Hotline League. I think it was 2 weeks ago or last week. I don't remember exactly. I was there. They were talking about me, or I was talking about that. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world the way that the viewership is right now for LTA, but that it was going to eventually get like it was the right. It's at the right point for the moment that esports is at. And that's still my opinion. Like, I think the viewership should be around this because it's a really, 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 really new like thing that just started not that long ago. It takes a long time before sports actually get to a bigger point, and esports just not really got to that point. But one of the things that we talked about was social media exposure, that I think the current gen of players is way, way lacking compared to the previous one. And the reality is that I remember like before, or even not like that long ago, but before, there were players that barely even used Twitter when it was called Twitter, right? Like I there's players that I remember once I tried seeing someone. I don't know if you guys remember Mr. Rawls, like the year player that played in TSM. I was looking out to see like if he tweeted anything related to that, and there was barely one tweet in like 3 or 4 months. And that's the sort of thing that I think a lot of players lack, and not only in the tier 1, but in tier 2 they've been much better with that. But I think like players in general just lack like the social attempt at trying to in general talk with people. In football, for example, like, because that's my context, every team like legitimately, not only do each player posts in social media, they have Instagram, they have X, they have like the own team page that they consistently post on with the players. Like, there's consistent outposts out there for players to do something, and the team forces them to do that. Like, that's on their contract, they need to do that sort of thing. And the fact that we're not utilizing that to reach more players and more things, it's something that I'm surprised that no more players do that. Like, the fact that Whippo is outspoken is something that I'm glad that we have in NA, but that should also go to other players and also going downward so that there's more talk about in general. Because I'm surprised that they barely speak about anything happening in the league ecosystem apart from their one match against Dignitas week 1, and that's it.
I think that's definitely fair. yeah, I think the whole ecosystem should be talking about tier 2 and tier 3 more. I think it would be good to reemphasize that aspect of the ecosystem. It would really I think it would be a much better system, more akin to what they have in Europe, if most of the player pool was rotating cyclically around LTA and NACL, and even OQs below that, rather than the Travis
Recycling.
Gafford's gone to hell and back on the boomeranging thing with new imports to the league. And I've talked people's ears off about that as well, as still being something that I am not especially appreciative of, and I do not think builds good foundations for this league looking into a far future state. We've gotten plenty doomer on that. Let's get a little hopium before we end up finishing off the episode. Let's talk about the lower brackets. The lower bracket, 10 teams remain in open qualifiers. Who do we think is going to make it? Let's give some takes.
Let me post the bracket in the chat so everyone can.
Yeah. Thank you, Collamer.
I got it up on Battlefire right here.
Yeah, I'm staring at it. That is I really don't know if I've ever been less sure about predicting something in a while. And we can confidently say here that a good chunk of Salt Mine content is predictions. Also as casters. We probably have thousands of series predictions between all of us here on live broadcasts. I am completely thrown off. And it's not just the easy answer is because Tempest, Citadel, Respawn have all looked below expectation, right? But it's also the combination of the fact that some of these other teams here are playing above expectation and playing above expectation, confident, and with their own identity.
The two teams in the semifinals are Friendly Fellas and Dog Fans, which I think if you would have said to anyone before the tournament, maybe not Friendly Fellas, but because again they're ex-NACL, but those are teams where if you're oh yeah, these teams contending for top 3, most people would say no, and they are 2 series away from it, right?
Yeah.
And then all the favorites are 4 series away from it at this point. There's only one spot.
Yep.
Right. And the point I want to hit home really quickly before all you guys go. For me, I'm not picking them, but I've been really impressed with how St. Clair has looked in a lot of their series. I think St. Clair is really playing at their best spot here. Obviously, Ducky Getters continue to somehow, despite not being a lot composed of the old Ducky Getters, continue to be innovative.
The name has aura.
Yeah, the name, and enthralled with that Rift Herald crap, which thank you, Gordo, will be in the plays of the week when that comes out this week. Obviously, it's the combination of all this happening together. I truly don't know who to predict at all. That being said, still think it's going to end up being one of the 3 that is Tempest, Respawn, and Citadel. My best bet would probably be the team that wins the matchup between Respawn and Citadel. Because if you guys aren't looking at the bracket while you're listening, those two have to play that at the start of this next weekend. So
those two played round 8, and it goes round 6, then 7, then 8, then 9.
Yeah.
The winner of round 9 is the one who gets the spot.
Yeah, so my logic here is I just think that side of the bracket is a little bit easier to get to that final, and then when you get to the matchup versus whoever the top side is,
you think the bottom side's easier?
Would you? So if you're
hell no, bro! I'm taking top side.
I think Tempest love the rods here. Yeah, I'm on that side. Tempest love the rods to qualify here. So you rather play
Friendly Fellas the Dog Fans right now? That's what I'm looking at it as mostly.
So So if you're looking at it from the perspective of all the teams on that side, right? So yeah, Friendly Fellas, who I wouldn't want to play, Tempest, who I probably wouldn't play, but St. Clair, Dorado, and Fisher.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm slightly biased because my team has actively played 2 of those teams.
Yeah. That's fair.
But the other side, you have Dog Fans, which again, going into the tournament, I'd say whatever, but they also beat Gravity and they also beat they beat Tempest. So that's one of those things where it's if
Maybe
you had
I'm
asked me
smoking
before,
weaker.
sure. No, I mean probably, but like I the reason I say that is like Dow fans again, and I had this argument earlier where like AMI had an easy bracket, but Dow fans was the one who made it easy because they beat the favorites. So Dow fans have shown that they can beat like again if they match up against Tempest, they beat Tempest last time they played him in the tournament. You have Respawn, pre-tournament favorite, Citadel, pre-tournament favorite, Ducky Getters, who surprised me as being a team where after the first like day or 2 days, you're like, oh shit, like maybe this team actually can go kind of deep. And then Pepe Lala, which I would argue like for that side is probably like the worst team, but they've all again like that's a team that very consistently like they beat bad teams and they contend against decent teams. So versus the other side where it's like you have Tempest and then you have Friendly Fellas, sure, but Friendly Fellas also got their ass kicked by Double Lift's team.
Yeah.
And Tempest obviously kind of choked it. So I'd say like if you're on like one side of the bracket or the other, like that's why I think that whoever wins Respawn Citadel is probably like I agree with your point. I think it's a good point of like whoever wins that is probably going to win the whole thing because they're playing the harder side of the bracket and presumably they're getting out of it versus like the easier side.
Yeah, so my dumb brain has like kind of switched up these two Friendly Fellas Dog Fans team.
It's all good.
So
I'm sure Dog fans is a bunch of Friendly Fellas. It's understandable.
So like I actually what I just said, switch it like the positions because because
Okay.
so my bad.
Player can't disagree with me, guys. It's impossible.
I guess I'm just sitting here glazing, but yeah, what really helped for me is that I think I was looking mostly at like the round 8 matchups like Friendly Fellas Dog Fans, right? I would rather play Friendly Fellas because I do think while New Airport did dominate the like very good team, I think they showed the playbook on how to beat Friendly Fellas, which is kind of just pick Victor game 1 and then done just panics. Unfortunately, is the reality. So I mean that's what they did.
Yeah,
like I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to say here. So yeah, I my bad.
You're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, Collamer, give us a
before
name.
the tournament. What's up, Gordo?
Give us a name. Who you got?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Or Slayer? So before the tournament, there was only one team that I was absolutely certain that you could not have convinced me otherwise they weren't going to make it, and that was Tempest. I thought Tempest actually had a better shot than Citadel. I thought that they had a better shot than Respawn by a considerable margin, and I thought every other team was basically like anywhere from why is this team even playing? Like if Yanni's team made it in versus spoiler tier versus like they need I think like Gravity I had is like they can maybe make it, but they need like a god bracket, kind of like how AMI actually ended up getting. I'm gonna stick with Tempest. I still think that Tempest is like a very good team. I will say Citadel over the last like day or 2 days that they played, they looked a lot better. Like it seems like stuff is kind of connecting for that
Night and
team.
day.
Yeah, so I can definitely see a world where Citadel just makes a run and then like they meet Tempest in finals and then just 3 of them. It's like, all right, well, Citadel made it, guys. We're so shocked. I mean, the way that they got there was a bit rocky, but they got there cool. I think it's going to be between Tempest and Citadel, though. I would be very surprised if one of the other teams, like honestly, I'd be pretty surprised if any of the other teams really got it. I think Respawn's bracket's too hard. I think most of the other teams are a bit too rough. I really thought the Friendly Fellas was going to get the spot, but I'm a bit more unsure since Double Lift and Co kind of clapped their cheeks. So maybe again that's just a Double Lift team like scaling up, and Friendly Fellas will just beat on every other team that's not Double Lift. But I'll go with Tempest.
I will disagree with Collamer right here. I will pick Citadel. So fuck you. There you go. How about that?
Okay.
There you go.
Citadel's my pick. I'll go Citadel.
Damn, bro, you're so bold going with Citadel as the team to make it on the OQ tournament. Very bold take.
Yeah.
I know.
I think
I make my money on those picks.
Yeah, I do think like if I'm setting betting lines for this, I do think Tempest and Citadel have got to be the best odds.
Citadel's probably overwhelmingly the best odds, right? Like on paper, surely.
Yeah. Like Tempest, if you're setting
like
betting
they look like shit originally, but like they look a lot better now.
Tempest is at like I don't know, like plus 200 probably. I don't know. Can't be too bad.
I have never bet, so don't know how that works. But I would think Citadel is probably
That'd be 3
around
to 1
the
odds.
highest. Okay. So I think it's probably high. Like I originally wanted to go with Dog Fans. My thing is that I feel like losing that BO5 creates 2 things. First, that they are now in lower brackets, so they have to re-battle against the tough competition that they already were able to upset, so it's not going to be easy on them just being able to replicate that twice. And then also like mentally, when you're in a high and you immediately get thrown back down to earth, that may impact them, especially being players that have never been like, I don't think most of these players have ever been at this spawn. I think the only one probably Barrick, and I'm not even sure if he has played to like a similar thing about qualifying to NACL and then being or close to qualifying and then being brought down back to earth. So I'm a little bit scared for them in that sense. I think Nightstar performed great in how they've been going so far, but like
That
I
guy's
also
great.
think that he has showed, like, sadly, because of how the series went, like, I think people have seen what Nightstar is capable of doing, and I think it would be more of a focus now to try and go against him. So probably going to be more difficult for him to perform to that same degree if they're going to put more attention on them. So I in general just will take the Citadel option just because I originally thought they were going to get the spot, and I will back up on that. Like they are a really good roster. I think they turn around their playstyle from losing against Friendly Fellas really really badly. And I do think that if they are coming out of a tough bracket, will just like make the rest of the games kind of easy, quote unquote. Like it's really going to be between Tempest and Citadel for me, and I think it's Citadel winning it.
It's really, to your point about dog fans, it's really hard to overstate how like mentally crushing a series like that is. Because if you're dog fans, you know by far in a way that that was significant, like that was your chance, right? Like
Yeah.
5 game series, you go to game 5 and you're against a like probably one of the easiest rosters on paper that you're gonna have to play the entire tournament. Like you just beat 2 of the tournament favorites, right? And then you go to a best of 5 series that was very close. So to your point, Nightstar almost carried his team on his back and got them there, and then
Yeah.
they came up just short. Like to be that close and to play against a team like that and know that your opportunity kind of slipped away. Now you're having to play against Citadel or maybe Respawn, presumably, and Friendly Fellas or Tempest, and have to win 2 best of 5s there when you just like couldn't beat AMI. And again,
Like
no shade to AMI, but again, like they're perceived. There's a perceived difference there, presumably. Like that's one of those things where like mentally it's hard to get over. I remember when we played in promotion tournament a year ago, and we played CCG, and I think it was only best of 3, but
yeah.
we were game 3 against CCG in a best of 3, and we knew that CCG was the best team in the tournament. So like you're like, okay, if we win this, like we're golden, like we are good to go, like we're making NACL, and then we lose in like a 55-minute crushing loss, and then we go to losers bracket, and then mentally it's just really hard to like bounce back from that as a team. Like it is just hard. So I really
Like
hope Dog Fans makes it, because again, I think that they had a hard ass bracket and they beat teams that I did not expect them to beat, and I fucking hope that they make it to finals and get a series for the spot again. But it's going to be so mentally hard for that team to bounce back.
Yeah.
like to me like that's the sort of thing that happens, or the sort of defeat that you experience in that sense is the same as when you lose a tournament. Like there's like it's legitimately losing a tournament because of
Your
how
spot
of
was right here, and it just
exactly
fucking floats away.
it's legitimately the difference between winning and losing the tournament to me, and it's close to impossible to get over that in a matter of a week, especially when you're going to have to play once against those strong opponents. So I hope they can do it, but it's really mentally tough, even for the best of players out there.
What's your take, Quax?
So, like, on who's gonna promote,
Yeah.
or
Make your claim, bruh.
I claim
You're gonna say St. Clair right now. I'm mind controlling.
I was
you.
thinking,
my claim
Oh boy.
is
All
my
right.
birthright, and the birthright of all ducks is to be number 1
okay,
eventually.
Gordo.
And I'm really surprised you even had to. I'm kind of offended, Slayer, that you even had to ask me that fucking question.
You want to know if you
Duck-
wanted a real shot at predicting the winner or not?
Let's hear it though. Why is the
Listen,
Ducky
Yeah,
Hitters?
and I can get behind the Ducks a little bit
So
here. They're not
listen,
going to be my pick.
So listen, who did the Ducky Getters lose to? Remind me. Friendly Fellas, right?
Yep.
True.
Actually, yeah.
And now the Friendly Fellas are on the other side of the bracket, so they don't have to deal with them anymore.
But they will in order to get the spot, potentially.
Potentially, but I do think Respawn.
That's where
I do
Tempest
think
comes in.
I do think that's where Tempest comes
Where
in.
tournament favorites Tempest come in.
Listen,
Yeah.
I think of all of the teams here, I label Ducky Getters like I don't label them as chokers, unlike all of these other teams. Like I think Respawn choked, I think Citadel choked, I think that Tempest choked. I think that Ducky Getters are actually like consistent in their play, and they were just outclassed in that series.
Isn't that worse?
I simply think that this team is going to show up, right? Like, I think that maybe they aren't the best team overall, but like this team has a lot of really strong parts. And personally, I really want to see this redemption guy keep going. I've been really impressed with him.
This guy's this guy's breakout player of the tournament. No,
One of them, yes, absolutely.
Probably, yeah.
like who even is this guy?
Along with I don't fucking know. He's an item in League of Legends. And then you've got Tyson Anytizer's Chicken, who is also in the support. I don't know. Maybe support roles are just on some shit in the NACL. I legitimately think that this team could make it, and I really want to see them because I am also, Shibby made me the official deacon of the Church of Low Jazz. I am the deacon, and I dictate who gets in and who doesn't. Okay.
I will say you are forgetting the best player because
I know.
Imagine in the year 2025, the great North American mid lane talent, God RJS, gets back into Academy.
Deus.
Mhm.
For no other reason than I think that would be fucking funny and kind of hilarious. I fuck it. Well, no, what? Screw it. Go Ducky Getters.
He's
I will
playing
Ducky
well,
Getters.
dude. He played. Listen,
Yeah,
I came
he
into
played
that.
better than
he's
expected,
playing pretty
yeah.
fucking good.
He's playing really well. Like, I came into that series of Slated 6 against Ducky Getters, leaning slightly for Slated 6, and oh my god, did the Ducky Getters just demolish them. It was.
I was watching their games with Keel, and Keel used to play with RJS at Fisher for a little bit, and I was like, dude, if RJS was playing this with Fisher, you guys would have won Seal. Where the fuck is this guy? He's been smurfing.
He's on his mode right now. Jojo Pune leaves the region and RJS is unleashed again. I don't know. it's gotten over the mental
Jojo
block.
has been reborn into RJS.
Yeah, dude. I don't know, but it's
Seems like Jojo Pin is a problem for a lot of mid laners in NA apparently.
the other thing about Ducky Getters is like Draco's just like insane. Like that's pretty,
Yeah.
dude's good. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like it's very odd that like, or I feel like it's under discussed that like Draco, who like might as well be a rookie all over again because the dude hasn't played since like 2022, and Redemption, who as far as we can tell he's just like a straight up rookie, are like both competing like at a very, very high level. So whether Ducky Getters move on or not, these are players to watch for next OQs. But also, I think Ducky Getters have a shot. I think there's 6 teams that have a realistic shot. I don't know if I prescribe to Collamer's 2 teams theory.
Then again, I said before the tournament that there was like 4 teams competing for 3 spots, and that went out the fucking window. So
I was fully on board with that. I think like most of the world was on
Yeah.
board with 4 teams competing pre-tournament.
I agree.
Yeah, that's completely out of the bag. But I do think Friendly Fellows, Dog Fans, Tempest Gaming, Citadel Gaming, Ducky Getters, and Respawn all have like realistic paths. Like I will be shocked if it's not one of those 6. The other 4 may as well not even be there. At least in my mind.
What are the 4 that you think have absolutely no shot? I want this on record.
The 4 that I think have absolutely no shot: St. Clair, Fisher, Pepe Lala, and Dorado.
Okay, yeah, fair.
Yeah,
just want it on record in case one of them makes a god run. So that way,
in case one of them makes a god run, then I'll owe them an apology. Unless it's Pepe Lala, then I will not apologize.
That's true. Actually, yeah.
The others, sure. I really do think like I really will like throw the full force of a true prediction behind Respawn though. I thought Respawn played pretty well against Near Airport, probably about as well as I've seen anybody play against Near Airport. I think they were forfunning it a bit the first weekend, but I think they looked solid. I think their getting 2-0'd was very much the result of Chad getting Omega jungle gapped by Spica. I think Spica's clear MVP of NA's whole run, and I don't think any of the junglers left in bracket will be able to do that to Chad. So I think there will be a lot more space for Respawn to play with. Respawn is the name of the team. Lawrence has concerned me a little bit, especially getting mogged by TF Blade, but you know, if I think I do need to make a little bit of a reach to say like I need Lawrence to step it up a little bit, look a little bit more like Blue Otter Lawrence, or Aporia Lawrence if you prefer. But I think Shochi, Sushi, and Mixture are playing awesome. I think those guys are playing at the top of their roles in the tournament, and I think they absolutely could execute and make it there. I think they got pretty good vibes within that team as well. So I think I'm not writing off Respawn. Obviously, I think Citadel's a huge barrier to overcome, and that series is hugely important for whoever ends up winning it. But I'm not writing off Respawn here. I think they have a shot.
I think that's fair.
I think it's fair.
All right. Well, that'll take us to the 1 hour 40-minute mark.
I'm exhausted, boys.
Just about where we wanted to be. This is way too late.
All right, time for a 20-minute tangent.
Time for a 20-minute tangent. Let's go. Let's talk about First Stand. No, we'll
you being shit.
You fucking sucks. That region fucking blows.
Well, that actually, you're tempting me to almost actually go on a tangent here, but I'm gonna wrap
the
up
only
the
tangent about that. The overlay sucked. It sucks a little bit less. NA is probably not gonna win shit, but at least Europe is winning shit.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hey, at
Also,
least
go
that-
White Oysters, my
That's
That's
goats.
gonna do it this week. All right, tune in this weekend for the final run of Open Qualifiers. I believe the homies will be around. Quax, you'll be on the Respawn streams, right? Slayer, you'll be on the Aegis streams.
I'll be hating somewhere.
I don't know where they're covering. Yeah, Collamer will be hating somewhere. He's been hanging out in the Salty Runback Discord doing watch parties. I will be on the NACL stream. TDS, are you doing anything that you know of yet?
Sadly, no. No, I was out completely for these OQs. I'll be back next ones, hopefully.
He's waiting 2 weeks for NACL to start, so that way he can get ready to glaze my roster.
Hell yeah.
Hey,
Hell yeah.
I'm doing such a good job at just being a huge Ole Miss fan for absolutely no reason.
My goat.
Let's go.
My
Let's
go.
go. All right. Well,
Right.
that'll do it for this episode. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. Check out those games this weekend, and we will see you all next time. Shout out to Collamer for hopping on the episode at short notice, man. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Gotta get my opinions out there. Don't know how to shut the fuck up.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right. And shout out to Supernova for, of course, allowing their code.
Roster announcement apparently this week, maybe.
Let's
Just saying.
go. Roster announcement. Who could it
Do you
be?
have do you have a video like Pulsar
it be?
prepared, or
Yep.
is it just going to be a
and
slideshow?
it might reference the Pulsar video too. That's all. I'll say.
Okay, let's
Hell
go.
yeah. Hell yeah. All right.